If you invest in stock market, taxes are unavoidable. Most beginners feel confused or even intimidated when they hear the word taxes, and that's completely normal. The good news is you don't need to get overwhelmed or stressed out. Now in this video, we're going to focus only on what actually matters for beginners. You will learn the core rules about gains, losses, dividends, and interest, and how to understand them without getting lost in the maze of forms and numbers. By the end, you will have clarity, not complexity, and a calm step-by-step picture of how your investments interact with taxes. Let's start with the basics so you can see how taxes actually work in the stock market. Hi, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a university professor and a long-term investor. I started this channel to share what I know, what I have learned, and what I'm still learning, so you can make better financial decisions. Before we dive in, let's set some expectations so you know what this video will cover. We're going to focus on the basics that matter most for beginners, how gains and losses in the stock market affect your taxes, what to know about dividends, and how interest income is treated. That's it. No complicated strategies or advanced scenarios. I'm intentionally leaving out things like options, commodities, foreign tax credits, and estimated tax payments, because those aren't relevant for most beginners and can just create unnecessary stress. By the end of this video, you will understand the core rules and feel confident about the basics without feeling overwhelmed. Now let's anchor everything to time, because understanding the calendar is the first step to making sense of stock market taxes. Taxes are based on the calendar year, January 1st through December 31st. During that time, your brokerage account tracks everything you do, every trade, every dividend, every bit of interest. After the year ends, your broker needs a little time to compile all that information in the forms you will need for your tax return. So even though the year is over on December 31st, your official tax documents won't appear immediately. They usually arrive a few weeks later, giving you all the details you need to report your gains, losses, and dividends and interest accurately. Once you have that timeline in mind, the rest of the process starts to feel predictable and manageable. Next, let's talk about the 1099 forms you will receive from your broker. Most brokers send a consolidated 1099, which is like a summary of everything in your account for the year. Within that consolidated form, there are specific 1099 forms. For instance, 1099B shows how much you made or lost from selling stocks. 1099 DIV reports dividends from your investments. 1099 INT reports any interest you earned. There may be other 1099 forms included depending on your account activity. Now, you might be wondering, if the year ended on December 31st, shouldn't these forms be ready immediately? Well, not quite. Certain transactions, like the wash sale rule, can retroactively affect your taxes. Brokers need time to double-check everything before sending the forms. By early to mid-February, you will typically have all your 1099 forms in hand, giving you a clear picture of what needs to be reported on your tax return. This ensures your numbers are accurate and ready for filing. So the most important rule for beginners to remember is this: you only pay taxes on gains when you realize them. If you sell a stock for a profit, that gain is taxable. But if you sell a stock at a loss, you don't pay taxes. In fact, that loss can often reduce your taxable income. Just holding a stock, whether it goes up or down, does not trigger any taxes. Taxes only happen when you sell or close your position. So the simple rule is this: holding isn't taxable. Selling is a tax event. Keeping this in mind will make understanding gains and losses throughout the year much easier. Now let's break down capital gains with a simple example. Imagine that you buy a stock for $100, and a month later you sell it for $120. Your gain isn't the full $120. You are only taxes on the profit you made, $20. How much you pay depends on your income tax bracket. If you're in the 10% bracket, you will owe $2 on this $20 gain. That means you still come out ahead with $18. The key takeaway: taxes are calculated only on your profit, not the total sale price. Small gains result in small taxes, which make capital gains much less intimidating once you understand the math. Now, another key concept is the difference between short-term and long-term gains. It all comes down to how long you hold a stock. For short-term, sell after holding a year or less, taxed at your regular income rate. Long-term, hold for more than a year, taxed at a favorable long-term rates, which are generally lower than ordinary income, no matter your bracket. For example, a $20 gain on short-term sale may be taxed at 22%, while the same $20 gain held long-term could be taxed at 15% or less. Remembering the one-year rule can make a meaningful difference over time. Long-term capital gains are a real game changer because they are taxed very differently from ordinary income and short-term gains. For the 2025 tax year, the one you will file in early 2026, the U.S. has 7 federal income tax brackets ranging from 10% up to 37% for ordinary income tax like wages and short-term gains. For example, as a single filer, income up to around $11,925 is taxed at 10%, then through 12%, 22%, and all the way up to 37%. Long-term capital gains from stocks held more than a year are taxed at special long-term rates, separate from ordinary income. For 2025, long-term capital gains, a single filer with a total taxable income below about $48,350 pays 0%. The next tier faces 15%, and the highest incomes pay 20%. Imagine someone earns $90,000 in salary and also have a $10,000 gain from selling a stock. That brings their total income to $100,000, putting them roughly in a 22% ordinary income bracket. If they sell the stock after holding it less than a year, that $10,000 gain is treated as a short-term income. Now, combine that with their salary, it would be taxed around 22%, meaning roughly $2,200 in federal tax. But if they hold that same stock for more than a year, that $10,000 gain is treated as a long-term capital gain. At this income level, most or all of that gain would likely be taxed at 15%, which comes at about $1,500, significantly lower than the short-term scenario. The key takeaway is that long-term gains are generally taxed much more favorably than short-term gains. Holding for more than a year can save significant money, even without doing anything complicated. It's really important to understand the difference between unrealized and realized gains. Imagine the stock you bought goes up in price. That's great news, right? But here's the thing. Just seeing the price rise doesn't create a tax event. You only pay taxes when you actually sell the stock and close your position. Let's walk through a simple example. Say that you bought a stock in 2023 for $100. By the end of 2023, the stock has risen to $130, but you don't sell it. At this point, you have got an unrealized gain of $30, but no taxes are owed because you haven't sold. Now, it's the end of 2024 and the stock is up to $150. Again, you are holding, not selling. That gain is still unrealized, so there is no tax consequences. Finally, in 2025, you decide to sell the stock for $180. Now, your gain is $80, and this is a realized gain. And this is when taxes are triggered. If you held the stock for more than a year, it will likely qualify for long-term capital gains treatment, which could save you money compared with short-term rates. The main idea to remember: price changes alone don't matter for taxes. It's the act of selling that creates the tax event. Now you may want to know, what happens if I lose money? Now, losing money in stock market happens, and it's normal. Don't panic. The good news is that losses are not taxed, and in fact, they can actually reduce taxes you owe. The catch is that you have to sell the stock to claim that loss. Simply holding a losing stock doesn't give you any tax benefit. Now, here is how it works in practice. Let's say that you bought a stock for $2,000 and it dropped to $1,000. If you sell it, you realize a $1,000 loss. And that loss can offset other gains you might have made in the stock market. Now, for example, if you made $1,000 from another stock, the two amounts net out to zero, meaning you won't owe taxes on the gain. The key idea is that the net result matters, not each transaction individually. Now, if your losses exceeds your gains, now there is another helpful rule. You can deduct up to $3,000 of excess losses against your other income each year, like wages from your job. Any losses beyond that carry forward to future years, so you never lose it. For instance, if you had a $10,000 total loss and only $3,000 can be used this year, then the remaining $7,000 carries forward. Next year, that leftover loss can again be used to offset gains or reduce taxable income. And it continues until it is fully used. The takeaway is simple. Losses aren't wasted. They can save you money and they can help you balance out gains over multiple years. Selling at a loss can actually be a smart tax move. Dividends and interest are actually one of the easier parts of stock market taxes. Both types of income are reported on your 1099 forms, just like your gains and losses. Interest income is straightforward. It's taxed at your regular income rates, just like the money you earn from your job. There's no special treatment, so it's easy to calculate. Dividends are a little different. Some dividends are ordinary dividends, taxed at your normal income rate, while others are qualified dividends, which can get lower favorable tax rates. Your 1099 will separate these for you, so you don't have to guess. The main point is both interest and dividends are reported and taxed, but dividends may give you a slight tax advantage if they are qualified. It's simple once you see it on your forms, and it's much less intimidating than gains and losses. When it comes to actually filing your taxes, it doesn't have to be stressful. You're doing it yourself. Most tax software can import your 1099 forms directly from your brokerage account. So you don't have to type in every number manually. It's fast and it reduces the chance of mistakes. Now, of course, you can also choose to work with an accountant, especially if you want extra peace of mind. Just make sure to provide them with all your 1099 forms, the gains, losses, dividends, and the interest, so nothing gets overlooked. The most important thing is to report everything. Even small amounts matter. By keeping your documents organized and using these tools, filing your taxes becomes much more manageable. It's really just a matter of following the numbers. You don't need to feel overwhelmed. There are lots of advanced rules, but beginners don't need to worry about them yet. Options, commodities, foreign tax credits, estimated taxes, ignore those for now. Focus on the fundamentals, the gains, the losses, dividends, interest, knowing that selling triggers taxes. Once you're comfortable, you can explore advanced topics. And that's a wrap up on stock market taxes for beginners. The big takeaway is this: taxes are manageable, and you're not behind just because this feels new or confusing. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. It really helps this channel. Don't forget to subscribe and support so you won't miss future videos. I may do a video on crypto tax in the future, and if you haven't seen yet, check out my previous video on how to start investing in 2026. It's a great follow-up to this one. Thanks for watching, and I hope you feel more confident heading into the tax season. Let's together make better financial decisions.